This is TeachTown Basics Primary. We're going to look at features that allow you to customize for your students. I have selected Sally Social, so anything we are going to change will be specifically for Sally. So you'll see that I've selected her name here, and you see that her name is at the top, Sally Social. Under the Current Student tab, the first thing you will see is the student profile. You can go here if you need to edit any information regarding birth date or demographics by clicking on Edit Profile. If you needed to edit the student demographic page, you would use the blue link here and hit Submit. I'm going to go back using the back button. You can also edit the student's account, which we talked about in previous segments, how to deactivate the student if you needed to do that. I'm going to go back using the arrow. Manage team and IEP goals we're going to talk about more specifically under the Current Student tab. So I'm just going to go back to my home page. And we're going to select Current Student tab. And we're going to take a look at display settings. The first one says indicate lesson type with text. If you check this box, you're going to see font or text in the top right corner of the screen that will indicate what part of the lesson the student is working in. If it's the pre-test, for example, or the post-test, or specific target items the student is working on. I like to set this for each student so that I can see how they're progressing or what part of the lesson they're in if I were to walk by. Most students are working more independently, so it's not like you would be sitting with them continually to see that, and it's easy if it's written in the font in the top corner. It makes it easy for you to take a glance at while they're working. The second one down is disabling the background during the student's lesson. You can see here on the screen there's some little squares, they're in blue. There might be a star in the background or squiggly lines, bubbles. For some students, those things make it quite challenging for them to have progress. There are 3 reasons I would check this. The first one would be for a student who has visual impairments. What this will do when you select this box, it's going to black out the entire background so that the targets are and the picture icons are very vibrant and sticking out from the background. So a student who has a visual impairment who might have accommodations or modifications already included on their IEP for larger font or a magnifier, they may benefit from having the background disabled during their lesson. The second type of situation I would look at are students who are really struggling with visual discrimination. So you might check this box for a student who is struggling across all learning domains. By looking at the data, you're seeing over time that they're really not making the progress that you would like. This may be a troubleshooting, problem-solving area that you could look at to see when disabling the background, does that help the student with gains. The third reason might be for those students who have a lot of visual self-stimulatory behaviors such as eye gaze or finger flapping hands and close to the eyes or eye tensing and things like that. If students have those impeding behaviors that make it difficult for them to attend visually, this may be something that would benefit that student and help them make gains as well. The third one down is disabling the correct answer starburst. That's the big yellow star that pops up whenever the student gets the correct answer. You can disable this, and we might consider that for a student who does have a lot of that visual self-stimulatory behavior if it were to be considered something overstimulating for that student. Most students tend to do very well with it and enjoy it. The last one is the Enable Pause button. When you check this box, a pause button will appear in the right bottom corner. This is necessary if you're using an iPad, as this will be the only way to pause during the student's session. If you're using a desktop or laptop computer, you're able to pause using the left side of your mouse and pressing the P key, P for pause. It will pause for up to 1 hour. you need to return during that hour, or any data that hasn't been completed during that time will not be recorded. So you can check the box here if you want the pause button on the screen, or you can, if you're using a desktop or laptop, you can actually pause at any time during the session using the left side of your mouse and P for pause. We're going to return now to the Current Student tab by using our back button, a little blue arrow here at the bottom. And we're going to move into selecting rewards. On the reward screen here, you will see little icons beside a list of each of the reward names. If it has a joystick, it means it's a cause-effect game. If it has the little cartoon character, it's one of the cartoons, a 30-second clip that's been taken from our social skills curriculum. So it's a cartoon that will be modeling socially appropriate behaviors. The box here to the right, if it's checked, these rewards will show up in a field of 6. Randomly, the computer will select them. If you do not want that particular reward to show up, you can uncheck the box. Some students may not be as engaged with certain rewards, or they may have an aversion to certain rewards. And if that's the case, like one of them is a fire truck, you know, if a student does not like fire trucks, that may be one that you want to disable. We want the student to be engaged during this time, interacting with the rewards. So this gives you the ability to really customize for the individual student. You do have to select at least one reward at all times, and it will show up in a field of 1. You can, if you need to minimize the field size, you would select at least 2 rewards, 3 rewards, 4, so on, depending on the field size that you want to display. Over here, it will show you how to thin out, that you can thin out the schedule of reinforcement. So every 3 to 5 trials, the student will earn the reward, but that can be thinned to every 5 to 7 trials or every 7 to 9, so students have to work longer before earning. You can also disable all cartoons and all games by choosing these 2 green buttons here, or put them all back using enable all games or enable all cartoons. If you click on the joystick, it's going to actually let you preview the reward. So it will bring it up. If you have a smartboard in the classroom, or even in some of your small groups, you could actually preview these and use them throughout your day, not just during your Teach-Town time, your Teach-Town individualized time. You can use them for small group or whole group. You could bring them up, say, you know, what is this? Oh, it's an airplane. Good job. Do you see a flagpole? Yes, good job. What color is this? Yellow. That's right. Who's wearing a yellow shirt today? All right, good job. So you can interact and do this in a small group using WH questions, matching, receptive, expressive language, and really use them in preview mode also to practice mouse skills for students who may still need practice in that area. When you're in preview mode, the reward will play until you stop it. So you will have to go up here and hit the X to X out of the screen. Which that gives you a really good opportunity to click through several of these and practice with students who need more work on their mouse skills. All right. And they're also a fun way to continue to add some reinforcers during maybe your small group time or use of generalization lessons, which we'll talk more about later. So that is selecting rewards. Again, you can thin out your rewards here. You can unselect or unselect that, and that one will no longer show up in the student's choices. That is under the Current Student tab. We're going to go back using the back button. We're going to move down to adjusting the student levels. So the student will go through that initial assessment, and the computer will place the student across each of the learning domains, which you see listed here, at the appropriate developmental level. Students will work on levels 1 through 5. Those levels can be adjusted here. If you feel that a student might be really struggling with the concepts in a certain level, at a certain level, you might want to take it down a notch by sliding it down. You might see that a student is really doing exceptionally well. They're passing all their pre-tests, and maybe they didn't test as well as we had hoped, but they really did know a lot of the skills. So you could easily bump that student up a notch. And the computer then will select different lessons based on the levels that you've selected. So these lessons here are the ones that have been chosen by the computer, and they will be referred to as quick start lessons. They are the ones that when you hit the quick start button, those are the lessons the student will be working through. Again, adjustments can be made regarding the level based on the student's performance. And when you're doing this, you just want to be cautious. You don't want to jump too many levels at a time. I would recommend just jumping up one little notch or down a notch and leaving it in place for at least a 2-week period before making any further adjustments. That will allow some time to reestablish a baseline, and then you'll have some data to look at to see how the student is doing at that particular level. You would then hit save. We'll sync that up, and you would use your back arrow or go back to your home page if you were finished with that particular student. We're going to move now down to set errorless prompting. And this feature allows you to customize for a student regarding the prompt hierarchy that is used. The default setting will have 4 pictures on a screen, and as the student, if the student is not having success, it will go through stimulus fading, graying out the incorrect choices, then dropping down 50% of the distractors, all the way down to an errorless trial. And then it will work its way back up as the student has success at whichever prompt level. If looking at the data over time, it appears that the student might be struggling with concepts or not having the success that you're wanting to see, this might be an area to troubleshoot as well. You could start the student's session with just one thing on the screen. That would be that errorless trial, just one thing on the screen. In this mode, if you've selected the box here for language arts or cognitive or adaptive, whichever domains you're choosing, when those items are presented during a lesson, they will be the only thing on the screen. And as the student has success, it will add a distractor. As they have success at that level, it will add an additional distractor, all the way up to that field of 4. So this really allows you to customize for students who might be struggling with concepts and needing some additional support. Again, it lets you select by each domain. So if they're only struggling in math, then that would be the domain you might want to try this particular feature with. We're going to use the back arrow and go into notes. So you have the ability to add notes for your students and read any notes that have been placed into the student account. So here we're going to take a look. This is a note that has been added under lesson type, so we're going to take a look at it. The student will work on this one in the second semester. Maybe this one was particularly challenged for the student, so a note's been added there. And you can view these as if it were an email, like an email system, so it actually notifies you and alerts you when a note has been added. I'm going to take that back. And we're going to go into, back again to our home page. Now you were able to add notes at the end of each session. When that session summary pops up, it allows you to add a note there. And then you would go under that current student tab to be able to read those notes that were added. All right, we're going to go now into our manage, I'm going to skip down here to Manage Team tab. And here we can go in and add facilitators to the student's account. So you can add as many facilitators to the student's team as you would like. So a lot of times in the classroom setting, we will add your paraeducators or instructional aides so that they have their own username and password to log in. And that can really help you when you're looking at data analysis later, when you're looking at reports to see who was working with the student at that time. You can also add any support staff related providers such as your speech and language pathologist. All the skills you're going to be working on with the student in TeachTown Basics are going to be receptive and expressive skills. So it's a great addition to the team when you can really collaborate with your speech and language pathologist. So you will be putting in your email, the person's email address and the relationship that they have to the student, and you will hit submit. There are two things here you want to take a look at. Allowing this person to add other facilitators. That depends. The teacher really, or the case manager, the teacher should be the primary facilitator. So I would say no, you do not want to allow this person to add other facilitators. And then this option here says to restrict permissions for the facilitators. That may be something you want to say yes to, because anyone who is in there could make changes to the curriculum unless you've selected yes. We want to restrict their permissions. You can also add a parent here, so the parent could have access to work with the student at home, and you most definitely would want to select restrict permissions because you want to be able to manage the curriculum components and so forth. Once you've filled out your email, chosen your relationship to the student, have your permissions checked off here, yes or no, then you're going to hit submit, and it will actually send an email to that person, which they have to respond to. It prompts them through creating a username and account, and then it will attach them to the student's license. Under Manage Team, View Facilitators, then you can go in and see who has been assigned to that student's team, and you can add or remove them here. So if you uncheck them, they will no longer be a part of that student's team. So it makes it very easy. If your SLP gets a new caseload and no longer is attached to that student, you can uncheck them. If the student is moving to another teacher next year, you would be able to invite the new teacher and then actually uncheck yourself, and you'll no longer be attached to that particular student. We're going to go back to the home page. Also here you can remove self as the main facilitator. We're going to go back now to your current student tab. I'm going to go back through the home page, and then the last thing under current student tab is IEP goals. You are able to add goals here. You are able to view any of the goals you've added, and we're going to conclude this segment, and we'll move into that in the next segment where we talk about how to align lessons in TeachTown Basics to your IEP goals and how to document those and manage those within TeachTown Basics.